like the gift of encouragement and mercy go hand in hand, because people that need encouragement also need a level of like mercy being extended towards them. And so as we wrap up this series on spiritual gifts, today we are talking about encouragement and mercy. Welcome back to another episode of the You, Me, and Jesus podcast. So we are here wrapping up our series on spiritual gifts. And I will say that for me, it has been a pleasure to be able to share all this with you, but it's also been a journey of me learning as I'm sharing, because, I tell you all the time that like here on this podcast that like, I am just sharing my relationship with God with you. And so what that means is that one, I don't know anything. Two, I'm relying on him. And three, I am always learning and growing with you as I'm sharing. And so it has been a blessing just kind of learning certain things in the Bible. It's been a blessing to like think about how like I have been taught some things in the Bible. And as I was getting ready to teach on each spiritual gift, I was like, I have always heard this and I've heard this. And I'm like, I don't see that in the Bible at all. So it's definitely been a journey learning and being able to share. And so today, as we are wrapping up this series, we're wrapping up this series talking about the gift of encouragement, or what some would call exhortation, and then the gift of mercy. And so when I was contemplating this, like, before we got started with the podcast today, I said to myself, they both seem like on two different, spectrums or whatever, because encouragement is like someone is dealing with something and you're lifting them up. And then when I look at mercy, it's like, here's someone who's done something and they deserve something, but you're giving them something else. Now, granted, both of them are like, you're kind of lifting a person up. So, let's just kind of get into it. So when I think about the gift of encouragement, I honestly feel like we all have the capacity to encourage people. We just do. We all have the capacity to hear a person's story, to see what a person is dealing with, and to get out of our present circumstances or whatever is going on with us, and to go and be with a person in whatever that they're in, right? But I do feel like that there are certain people who just do it differently. One of the things that I'm always talking to like my best friend about, and then people that I'm starting to get in close relationship with, is I have found myself like meeting a lot of people because I'm a social media marketer. And I found myself with like, there is not as many people that have the capacity to like abandon whatever is going on with their life and then go be with a person and what they're dealing with, encourage and whatever, and just give empathy and what have you. And so I thought that this was a thing that like everybody could do, everybody knew to do, or had the capacity to do, but I'm learning that that is not the case, right? And I have been trying over the last years to change that with people. And I'm like, I can't, right? And so with learning about this gift of encouragement, I am learning that, listen, don't get me wrong. Some people are just in their stuff and they're just always thinking about themselves. They're just not self-aware. Let's just say that, right? But there are some people who are not only self-aware, but that just have this way, this thing about them where they have this way of being able to encourage people. I don't know about you, but I think we have all encountered a woman or man who has out of nowhere been able to always say the right things at the right time. I always hear, people say like, I don't even know this lady, and she just came up to me in a grocery store and she spoke directly to me, to my spirit. And that could be the gift of prophecy too, and discernment. But it was just like, she just had something. And then many people in her life probably say the exact same thing about her, right? And I feel like that a person like that has been just given a gift, I personally don't think that I have this extra measure of encouragement on me. But I do know that I have learned over the years how to just abandon whatever is going on with me and just be in a moment with a person, listening to them and just being like, what do you need? And just giving them whatever they needed in the moment. For example, last night I was at like a banquet at church, and this woman comes up and I'm like, oh girl, what's up? You look cute. What you wearing? And she had this very cute dress. She said she just turned 50 and she didn't want to take off her jacket because she said she was looking puffy. And I'm like, Puffy wear? Like, I'm like, she looked really skinny to me, you know, but in her mind, she was just like, this is puffy to her. And so I said, okay, this is where she is. And I could just in that moment, just be like, okay, this is where she is. Let's let her be where she is. And let me encourage her in where she is with whatever I can encourage her with. And I did that, and I did that, and I did that. And as the night went on, I looked up across the way. Not only did she have her jacket off, but she was up walking around without her jacket on. And I was like, I was so like inspired that she, whatever happened, you know, she was able to just be, you know, just be in that moment for herself. So that was amazing. Now, let's talk a little bit about the gift of mercy. And I really want to read the definition for mercy, but I also want to tell you what the Bible says about mercy. So when I looked up in the Bible about mercy, I saw attracted to people who are hurting or in distress, 1 John 3:19 through 20, or wants to remove hurts and relieve stress, 1 John 3:19 through 20. But also you've got motivated to help people to have right relationships with one another, 1 John 2:9 through 11, and then loves opportunities to give place to others, Romans 12:18. And when I looked up the definition of mercy, I was like, this is good. It says compassion or forgiveness shown towards someone whom it is within one's power to punish or harm. Okay, so what does that mean? So when I look at that, mercy to me means I did you wrong. I did this wrong thing, right? And I did this wrong thing towards you. And you could 100% throw me in jail. You could 100% call the cops. You could 100% ABC. But instead, you let me go. Instead, you forgave me, let me apologize, you let me go, right? It is like, you know, in the Bible, you know, we are, you know, we all can sin, right? Every day, like right now, we all can sin, right? And Jesus, you know, he knew that we were going to sin, but he chose to die on the cross for us, right? God knows what we're going to do before we do it. And then we do these things. And even though we could have chosen not to do these things, even though we know the right and the wrong thing to do, we still choose to do these things. And God still chooses to forgive. We could all go straight to hell. We could all be turned into a pillar of salt. We could all have all types of things happen if God chose to make them happen. But instead of him having those things happen, he chooses and chose to forgive, right? And so that is mercy. And what I am learning is that some people just have an extra measure of mercy. I'll give you an example. I remember when, I can't remember what cop it was. I think it was the white cop who shot, I think it was I can't remember his name, black guy. She said she went into the wrong apartment. She shot him. He died. And so they're in the court case and they find her guilty. And then his little brother goes up on the stand. And his little brother is saying what he's saying and all the things. And then he says, I forgive you, yada, 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 whatever. And then he says, can I hug you? And he looks at the judge and says, can I hug her? And she is just like, yeah, you can hug her. And he forgives her right then and there. And it shook the whole world. Like I have goosebumps even now as I'm saying this. It shook the world in a way that you're like, she does not deserve to quote unquote be forgiven. Whatever happened, people would understand if he said, I can't forgive her right now. But he said, I am going to forgive and I'm going to love on you. And wow, I was like, oh my God, I cannot say that I have the capacity for that today. You know, honestly, I remember when I found out my ex was being unfaithful and I was like looking for more evidence of the things he had done. And he had this little notebook and I opened up this notebook and one of the pages, it says, Keenya doesn't understand forgiveness or mercy. I was like, I didn't even know what that meant. I had no capacity for understanding about forgiveness or mercy. And I remember when I had the capacity, like maybe a couple of weeks later, and I was just doing research and I was like, oh, wow, I have never heard of this word mercy, and I surely don't walk in forgiveness, And of course I have grown and I'm maturing in that area, but wow, quite the weak point. But some people have just been given this, like, just a greater measure, greater ability to forgive. It still hurts them. It still pains them. It's still not what may have happened to them, but he's just given them an extra measure that other people just have no capacity for. Okay. And when I look at that with all the gifts, is that each person has been given a measure. Like the Bible even talks about, like, all of us have been given a measure of faith, right? And we're all going from glory to glory, faith to faith, faith to faith, glory to glory. And so, like, it's like someone who prophesies, for the first time, you may have heard this, right? And the next time you hear this, and the next thing you know, now you hear God even clearer to be able to prophesy. Whereas someone is a prophet and they been hearing at this level, and then they continue to grow in their ability to hear, see, and know, and all those types of things. And so, like, I just look at these spiritual gifts that we've been talking about through this series, and what I really feel like I am wanting you to know, and what I'm wanting you to do with this is, I really want you going on this, like, journey where you're just like, okay, I'm not going to sit around and wait for my pastor or my mentor or somebody to call me a prophet, to call me an evangelist, to call me a pastor. I'm not saying go out and start our own church. I'm not saying that, but you're not going to sit around and wait for somebody to name you. That you're actually going to start going, okay, God, let me take this spiritual gifts assessment and see what I get initially. And then let me spend time with you, God, you, Jesus, to actually uncover, like, more of who you are, how you have created me, and the gifts that are on the inside of me. And I really want you to start going on this journey for yourself, because then, you can talk to your pastor about it. Then you can talk to somebody else about it, but really just being like, okay, here's me. And I took this quiz and, like, some of this kind of makes sense. Let me bring it to God. Let me bring it to Jesus and say, how do you see this? And just really getting a more understanding from him, so that he can tell you, this is what I want focused on today. Right. So, like, I've got different gifts, and for the most part, like, I see him for me in this time of, like, my gift of faith getting back up, because it was broken down so much after going through divorce. And I just see him and I on this journey of, like, my faith again. And while I'm also walking on this journey for faith again, I'm also, right there with encouragement and the prophetic, because I went on the prayer team. I'm praying for people. I'm believing for people. And I'm, like, hearing God just, like, speak a thing and just declare a thing, whatever it is that I'm hearing, And so it's like, at the same time, this is the journey that we're on. Right. And so that's what I'm doing right now, to continue growing, maturing, healing, in my gifts, and to be able to walk in the fullness of who God created me to be, and not just stay stagnant. Because if I waited for my current pastor to name me or whatever, it could take years, right? Because there's a lot of people at our church, and it's like, I shouldn't wait on him. He's a man, right? I should be talking to God, right? And so that's what I'm doing. And I'm challenging you to do the same thing, because, this is why we're here on earth. We're not just here to run our life, like, do our jobs, run our businesses, be with our husbands, our wives, our kids. That's not the only reason why we're here. Like, there is a calling on all of our lives. Right. And it's for us to spend time with the Lord, for him to help us understand that calling that's on our lives, and to begin to walk in the office of that. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's called a pastor. Everybody's called to be an evangelist, right? Your could be whatever it is, but you've got to come to the understanding of what that is, so then you can operate in that. So that way your life is going towards God's design and not the happenstances of today. Okay. So I hope that you enjoyed this series. If you did, I want to know, I know you're listening. I can see you're listening. I can see you guys are watching. but I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think. I want to know what you're learning, because it helps me to give you more of what it is you're looking for. Because like I will always come up with what I think you want to hear or want to see, but I really want to give you what you want to learn. Okay. So let me know. You can tell me on social media, send me a DM or something on the podcast, YouTube, somewhere, but let me know. And thanks for watching and listening. Was read about in the Bible that we can literally have here. And